Let me ask you a question that might hurt. Have you ever wondered why your grandfather could buy a house, a car, support a wife and three kids, and save for a comfortable retirement, all on a single income as a factory worker? He didn't have a college degree. He didn't have a side hustle. He didn't have crypto. He didn't have to drive Uber on weekends. He just went to work, came home, and owned his life. Now look at you. You have a degree, maybe two. You and your partner both work full time. You have efficiency apps, budget trackers, and passive income streams. And yet, you are struggling to pay rent for a two-bedroom apartment. You are terrified of the grocery store. Buying a house feels like a fantasy reserved for millionaires or corporations. You aren't crazy, and you aren't lazy. You are the victim of an invisible crime scene that has been active for 50 years. There is a silent thief living in your bank account, stealing your time while you sleep. They call it inflation. But that is a soft, boring word designed to put you to sleep. The real word is devaluation. They aren't raising the prices of goods. They are destroying the value of your labor. And in this video, we are going to look at the hard data, the specific government policies and economic shifts that turn the American dream into the modern nightmare. Once you see the graph I'm about to show you, you will understand exactly who stole your future. My name is Tony Wayne. I read the boring economic reports, so you don't have to. But before we open the history books, here's the deal. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am a researcher, not a licensed financial advisor. I'm just a guy showing you the math. Always do your own due diligence. And while you are here, do your wallet a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It's the only investment you'll make today that costs $0 and guarantees a return on investment. All right? Let's look at the crime scene. We have to start with the smoking gun. This is a chart from the Economic Policy Institute, EPI. It tracks two things: productivity, how much value you create per hour, and hourly compensation, how much you get paid. From 1948 to 1971, these lines moved together. If workers made more stuff, they got paid more money. It was a fair deal. It was the social contract. But look at 1971. The lines split. The alligator opens its mouth. Since 1979, productivity has risen by 64.6%, but hourly pay has only risen by 17.3%. You're working harder, producing more, and using better technology than your grandfather ever did. But mathematically, you are keeping a fraction of the value. Where did the rest go? It didn't disappear. It was transferred. It went to corporate profits, shareholder dividends, and CEO compensation. But why did it happen specifically in 1971? On August 15th, 1971, President Richard Nixon went on television and temporarily suspended the convertibility of the US dollar into gold. That temporary measure is still in effect today. Before 1971, the government couldn't just print money whenever they wanted. They needed gold to back it up. Money was scarce. Money was honest. It was a physical constraint on politicians. After 1971, money became fiat. It became paper-backed by nothing but trust. This gave the government a superpower: the ability to print money out of thin air to pay for wars and welfare programs without raising taxes. But here is the catch. When you print more money, the money you already have becomes worth less. It's simple supply and demand. If I gave everyone in the world a Mona Lisa, the Mona Lisa would be worthless. This creates the Cantillon effect. This is an 18th century economic theory that explains why you are broke and Wall Street is rich. Richard Cantillon discovered that when new money enters the system, it doesn't reach everyone at the same time. The government gives the new money to big banks and corporations first, through bailouts and cheap loans. They get to use it while it still has value. They buy houses, stocks, and assets. By the time that money trickles down to your paycheck, prices have already gone up. You are the last person to touch the money. You are eating the crumbs of the inflation meal. Now let's dig deeper into the two-income trap. This is a concept popularized by Elizabeth Warren before she was a politician. In the 1970s, as inflation started to eat away at wages thanks to Nixon, families realized one income wasn't enough. So women entered the workforce in massive numbers. Now you have two incomes. You should be rich, right? Wrong. Because everyone suddenly had two incomes, the price of the most limited asset, housing in good school districts, skyrocketed. Families started bidding against each other using their combined salaries. The price of housing rose to absorb the second income. So today, you must have two incomes just to afford the same house that your grandfather bought with one. You are working twice as hard to stand in the same place. That isn't progress. That is a treadmill. Now let's talk about the TV paradox. This is how they trick you into thinking inflation isn't bad. They will tell you, but Tony, look, a 65-inch 4K TV used to cost $3,000. Now it costs $400. Cars have safer airbags. Phones are smarter. Life is cheaper. This is a lie. We have seen deflation in things that are mass-produced in China. TVs, toys, gadgets. These are wants. But we have seen massive hyperinflation in the things you actually need to survive. Needs. Healthcare, education, housing, childcare. Since 2000, the cost of hospital services has gone up over 200%. College tuition? Up 170%. Meanwhile, TVS went down 97%. The system has made it cheap to distract yourself, but expensive to keep yourself alive. You can afford a flat screen to watch Netflix in poverty, but you can't afford the insulin to treat your diabetes. That is not progress. That is a dystopia. This leads to the phenomenon you see every time you go to the store. Shrinkflation. Companies know that if they raise the price of chips from $4 to $6, you will riot. So they keep the price at $4, but they reduce the bag from 12 ounces to 9 ounces. The Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, calls this hedonic adjustment, or ignores it. But your stomach knows the truth. You are paying the same price for 25% less calories. But it gets worse. Meet skimpflation. This is when they replace good ingredients with bad ones. Instead of olive oil, they use seed oil. Instead of sugar, they use corn syrup. Instead of a human customer service agent, you get a chatbot. The price stayed the same. The quality collapsed. Your salary buys less value every single year. You are literally subsisting on less. But the number on the receipt looks the same. Now you might be screaming at the screen, Tony, the government says inflation is only 3%. Here's the darkest secret. The government lies about the number. In 1996, the Boskin Commission changed how the U.S. government calculates the Consumer Price Index, CPI. They introduced a trick called substitution bias. Here's how it works. If the price of steak goes up by 50%, the government assumes you will stop buying steak and start buying hamburger. So, they swap steak for hamburger in the inflation basket. If hamburger goes up, they swap it for dog food. By doing this, they can claim the cost of living didn't go up because you spent the same amount. They ignore the fact that your standard of living collapsed. You are eating worse food, but the spreadsheet says you are fine. According to Shadow Stats, an independent research group that calculates inflation using the pre-1980 methodology, real inflation isn't 3% or 4%. It has been running closer to 8% or 10% for years. If your boss gives you a 3% raise and real inflation is 8%, you didn't get a raise. You took a 5% pay cut. If you have been working for 10 years and getting standard raises, you are likely 30% poorer today than when you started. So, how did the system stop people from revolting? If wages have been stagnant since the 1970s, why didn't we burn it all down? Because they gave us a band-aid. It's called credit. When wages stopped growing, the banks stepped in and said, don't worry, here's a credit card. Here's a home equity loan. Here's a student loan. They allowed us to use debt to maintain a middle-class lifestyle that our salaries could no longer support. Your grandfather bought a house with cash savings. You buy a TV with a credit card at 24% interest. We replaced income with debt. And now that bill is coming due. The average American is carrying record levels of debt just to buy groceries. The Band-Aid is ripping off. This brings us to the final nail in the coffin, the financialization of housing. In the past, houses were for living in. Today, houses are asset classes. When the government prints trillions of dollars, like they did in 2020, that money has to go somewhere. It goes into real estate. You aren't just competing with other families to buy a home. You are competing with BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. You are competing with pension funds that have billions of dollars in free money. They buy entire neighborhoods to turn them into rentals. This is creating a new system, modern feudalism. They own the land. You pay the rent. You own nothing. And as Klaus Schwab famously said, or didn't say, depending on who you ask, you will own nothing and be happy. Well, you definitely own nothing. I'm not sure about the happy part. And there is a psychological toll to this. It's not just numbers, it's hope. When your salary buys less every year, you lose the ability to plan for the future. You stop saving for 20 years from now because you are trying to survive Tuesday. This forces you into a high-time preference mindset. You spend money as soon as you get it because you know it will be worth less tomorrow. This is why you see people with no savings buying expensive cars or luxury bags. It's not just stupidity. It's a subconscious realization that money is a melting ice cube. I might as well enjoy it now before it melts. So is it hopeless? Are we doomed to poverty? No. But you have to change your strategy. You cannot save your way to wealth in a currency that is bleeding to death. Saving dollars in a bank account is like trying to fill a bucket that has a hole in the bottom. Step 1. You must own assets. You need to convert your labor, salary, into assets, things that are scarce, as fast as possible, whether that is the S&P 500, real estate, gold, or Bitcoin. You need to hold things that the government cannot print. You want to be on the side of the Cantillon effect that benefits from inflation, not the side that gets eaten by it. Step 2. The loyalty tax. Stop being loyal to your employer. The data shows that employees who stay at a company for more than 2 years get paid 50% less over their lifetime than those who switch jobs. Your current boss will give you a 3% cost of living adjustment. A new boss will give you a 20% market value adjustment. In an inflationary environment, loyalty is poverty. You have to be a mercenary. Step 3. Opt out of the substitution trap. Don't let them lower your standard of living. Be aware of it. When you see the bag of chips get smaller, realize it is an attack on your wealth. Focus on increasing your skills, productivity, so you can demand higher wages, or start a side business where you can raise prices instantly to match inflation. The system is designed to keep you running on a treadmill where the speed keeps increasing but the payout stays the same. They want you to blame your boss, or the other political party, or your neighbor. But the real villain is the money itself. Your salary buys less because your money is worth less. Stop trusting the paper. Start trusting assets. And stop waiting for the prices to come back down. They aren't coming back. You have to climb up to meet them. Check the description below. I've linked the EPI study, the Boskin Commission report, and the Shadow Stats data we discussed. Read them. Get angry, and then get smart. If this video opened your eyes to the invisible thief, hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next deep dive. Don't let them melt your future. Thanks for watching.